Hi everyone, trust you all are doing well. So how do we do dynamic routing in Next.js? Now in this case, we want to go to localhost 3000 / articles and whatever dynamic value at the end right here. So this can be 1 or it can be 2 or it can even be a slug. So I'm just going to put a slug like this. All right, so that's basically how do we do this in Next.js. All right, now this is quite easy. Now you already know how to do nested routes. So in order to do a dynamic route, as you can see, we need to create a folder called articles and then whatever we need to put in there. So let's quickly create that folder. So folder, in this case, we just want to go to / articles, but I want an index for all the articles. So in here, I just want to create a new file and I'm going to call this one index.js. Now then I want to create an arrow function and I'm just going to call this one articles. And I'm just going to create an h1, all right, of articles. So let's quickly go there. So if we go to / articles now, you can see we get the articles. All right, so we already know how to do this right now. Now the next thing is if we want to go to /1, we're going to get a 404. This page could not be found. Right, how do we extract that value right there? So in order to create a dynamic route, all you have to do, now this is important, this have to be this way, this is the convention, 2 square brackets .js and whatever value that you want to be dynamic. Now in my case, you can do article ID like this, or you can put slug, totally up to you. Right, in my case, I'm just going to make it simple. I'm just going to make it id.js. All right, and then I'm going to create an arrow function, and I'm going to call this one article. Let's make it single article. All right, so as you can see, single article, and I just return an h1 with a single article right there. Now, the important part right here is I'm just going to type it out here. You need to put it between 2 square brackets .js. That is the most important part. And this can be anything in there. But just if you put in ID, that makes sense. Just kind of use your common sense when you do that as well. All right. So in this case, I'm going to do it with an ID. But how do we extract that value right there? So as you can see, if I go to /1, we get the same page. Or if I go to 2, we get the single article. Now, if I go to string, you'll see I get to that same page right there. Okay, so this can be anything. This can be a number or it can be a string. Right, so now how do we get that value right there? So let's quickly make this number 4. So how do we extract that value? Now, there's a React hook that we can use. Now, this is quite easy for me, so I can do a constant like this. All right, and I can just put router. Then I'm going to equal that to use router. Use router like this. Now, if I do this, it will import it automatically at the top. All right, so if you don't want to do that, let me just quickly show you. So import. All right, so import the React hook. We can just say use a router like this from Next.js. Right, so just think of the import like a namespace that you will use in Laravel or PHP. So just think import this part right here from that part right there. Okay, more or less the same, but not exactly. All right, so this is, so how do we get this right here? So now I can use it. So we can say constant. We can just say a router. Then I can equal that to, just give us some room so you guys can easily see. So then I can just say use router like this. Remember, in JavaScript, we can leave the semicolons or we can add it right there. Totally up to you. Now let's move on. The next part right here, this is the parameter part that we want to extract. Now this can be param like this, or this can be ID, just to kind of, if someone looked at the code, they will understand what it is. So in this case, I'm leaving it as ID. Now on that router that we have right here, okay, what I want to do is we can run a query on that. Now the query is going to be equal to the ID. Now the ID right here is important. So this ID must correspond to what you put in between the 2 brackets right there. So if you put article ID, then you have to put in here article ID like this. Okay, so that is very, very important. So in my case, I named it ID, so that's what I'm going to leave it as. So what I want to do now is I just want to display that ID, single article of what ID. Let me just do like this with the curly braces. And then I just put in the ID like that. So as you can see, single article 4. So let's quickly go to another one. Let's put slug. Just an example. As you can see, I get the slug right there. So if I go to 5, it returns that value like that. Okay. So that's basically how we can work with dynamic routes in Next.js. But this is obviously not how you're going to use it, but I'm just showing you how to edit right there. But we're going to get to a little bit more advanced part about get static paths and get static props. We're still going to get to that part right there. But what we're going to do in the next episode is we're going to be dealing with navigation. So as you can see, I have to manually type in everything that I want to do right there. So this is quite nice. So I will see you guys in the next episode where we're going to be dealing with navigation. So see you there. Adios.